Welcome along, it's the All Things TechIE podcast, episode 13 with myself, Justin Dawson. Simon Lang, missing in action. If anyone knows where Simon is missing in action, please let us know. No, he's still off. And we're continuing our series, listeners, on AV people and how they got involved in the audiovisual industry. We have some really interesting stories to tell you. And today we're talking with Stephen Ashby. Stephen is the technology manager of operations at Involved Visual Collaboration, based in Kent in the United Kingdom. It was Steve's birthday, and he had some weird and wonderful birthday presents from his kids. I have been sworn to secrecy on what presents he got, but if someone was to pop a beer in front of myself and Steve off mic, we probably would tell you the story. Episode 13 of the All Things TechIE podcast. Stay tuned.
The All Things TechIE podcast is a product of the Extreme Media Network. For advertising and sponsorship opportunities, please visit www.extrememedia.ie. That's XTREME media.ie.
All Things TechIE podcast, brought to you by two tech junkies, Justin Dawson and Simon Lang. For more, visit www.allthingstech.ie for All Things TechIE.
I suddenly realised, I was like, I'm in my Involved shirt.
That's okay. We can do free advertising.
Yeah.
And happy birthday, Steve.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Did you take the day off work?
I didn't know. The kids are at school, so I sort of thought about it, and I thought, shan't I? I thought, no, save it for something else. I'm quite lucky, really. I'm sort of, certainly when I'm working from home, I've my own sort of time. So,
well, let's dive right into it, because we're sort of answering some questions right there. And Steve, thanks for joining us. Steve's birthday today, listeners. Steve, are you going to tell us what age you are?
I'm 37, so not too bad.
You're only a year older than me then, right? So,
there you go, exactly. You see, both still prime of our youth.
yeah. So how many? I love the pictures around your office with dads, teddies, birthday boy, even the kids. So how many kids have you got there in the?
I've got two. I've got a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old going on 17.
So you actually never sleep, is what you're telling me?
No, 4:30 this morning, and that wasn't anything to do with my birthday at all.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Do we want to go into the story? Yes, we do. We want to go into the story.
No, I think this morning was got woken up because they insist on having the bathroom light on at night, which is fine.
Okay.
But with it being particularly warm now, the summer season, we have obviously the windows open at night, and there was a giant moth apparently.
Uh-oh.
So the eldest couldn't go to the bathroom until somebody had removed it for her. She'll hold snakes. She is, she'll wander off in a supermarket, no problem at all. But a moth, the whole house must wake.
Right. Yeah. And is your wife the same, or where does this phobia come from?
I don't know where it comes from. To be fair, the wife's okay. The wife can't do certain spiders.
Okay.
But she's okay with most things.
Right.
I think even at the sort of school fairs and things like that, when they bring along the reptiles, she doesn't mind holding them. Whereas myself, snakes, keep them away from me.
Okay.
Well away.
Well, anyway, so that's made a long day of this, and hopefully the kids have gone to bed at this stage, or they're on the summer holidays now. No.
No, God, 3 more weeks until they're off for the 6. The youngest is fast asleep because she did not appreciate getting woken up, but the eldest is still floating around in the background. So hopefully she
have some interruptions throughout the show. Is what you're telling me.
It's possible, but I hope not.
We love outtakes on this program. So, Steve, what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of a quick fire buzzer round and bits and pieces. But I always think it's an interesting question that we always ask AV guys and girls, because we're a diverse association.
Indeed.
Yes. How did you get involved in the world of audiovisual?
By mistake.
By mistake. Great answer. Moving on. Next question. No, go on. Tell us
No, I was 16. I broke my arm sort of quite severely in my GCSE years at school. It took about a year in total for it to heal. Several operations and whatnot. So all took me, my grades sort of slipped. I was a massive IT buff, and I wanted to go into IT. But of course I wanted to go on college. Didn't have the grades in the end to get on. The grades were okay, but they weren't the A's for the advanced course that I wanted. So subsequently, the course I went on, the next level, was the first week was learning how to turn on and off a PC, and I was sort of like, can't be doing this. So I sort of slipped into a way of doing working at Woolworths back in the day. And I was sort of skipping college to go work at Woolworths until one day the college phoned up and said, look, maybe best, spoke to my mom, that's what they did in those days, and said maybe be best suited in a work-based training scheme. And my mum sort of went, yeah, okay, where? And I went, well, we've got two choices. There's an apprenticeship in which you'll receive about £100 a week, working for a car rental company doing IT, or there's Warwick University.
All right.
But it's £50 a week. And Mum turned around and went, you'll go to Warwick University. I was like, yeah, thanks for that. And thinking at that age, 16, you're like, well, I want the extra 50 quid a week.
Yeah.
But no, it's one of the best things she's ever done for me. You know, one of the best things she ever did for me. And I went along thinking I was going to work for IT services, and it was audiovisual services.
Oh, super.
And the story started there.
So how many years are you now with Warwick? Well, you were with Warwick.
I was with them. I left after 9 years.
Okay.
So 9 years in HE, and then started again. Went down to Big Smoke London, and because I don't know what it's like now, but certainly back then, higher education wasn't as recognised in the AV industry as certainly as it is now. To be fair,
no, hold on. It still is.
Right.
You know, I find it a baby minnow working in higher education where, you know, you listen to Joe Wade's podcast, and it's the same over in America. You go to Infocom, you go to ISE, and they go, "Oh, you work in higher education." Well, you know, you guys don't spend a budget. Next, if you go private sector and public sector, it's completely different, and we all
absolutely, and that's the strangest things. Warwick has a fantastic setup in terms of conference park. So 30 weeks a year is the academic year, and then the other 22 is conferencing for blue chip companies, you know, just big corporate companies. And so it was sort of, when I left Warwick and wanted to sort of join AV down London, I was sort of classed as not enough experience in anything. And I'm thinking, I've dealt with like massive companies with a height of pressure in terms of they're in for 4 days. Back then, you know, 20 years ago, they're spending sort of £250,000 to be there for 4 days. Right. You know, it's absolutely massive.
Yeah, and was the job when you went down to London, was it different? Like when you went into the private end of things, what was your first, like you were doing live events? Politics.
Politics. It was amazing all of a sudden, this world of politics. But in fairness, yeah, the corporate side was something a lot, you know, it was a lot. It was different, but not the work. You know, the work in which you did, you still went along. You still helped people set up their video conferencing. You still sorted out the same problems that you did before. But you also had other knowledge in which you suddenly shocked them with when you came out. Because I think, you know, certainly in higher education back then, nothing was outsourced.
Yeah.
Apologies about the background of Vaytide. You're wandering around the house trying to find me, I think.
My 1.5-year-old going on 2 in August, he could wake up at any moment as well. we can go with that. Now, how many years ago are we talking about? We're talking nearly 15 plus years ago, are we?
So about 12, about 12 years ago now.
Okay.
So yeah, so obviously we had the financial crisis, and all of a sudden everything started going a bit wrong in the industry, and so I went down to London, worked in house for a while, for a law firm, and yeah, it was pretty good. And then unfortunately they went through a load of redundancies after about nearly a year. By which they just sort of managed to get, obviously that was a bit of corporate then back on the CV, so it made it a bit easier. Did a bit of freelance, which you had to strongly consider because that's where the money was. And, did a bit of that for about 3 months, and ended up working for Barclays through a sort of systems integrator and a service provider for about 3 years. Doing sort of VC bridging and VIP events and things like that, and it's great for me. It was brilliant to a degree because it was heavily involved in VC and during the sort of change from ISDN to IP and we're talking globally. We looked after the estate, so yeah, certainly kept the sort of CV building and knowledge building and the gaps that in other areas, while still then drawing back on their technical knowledge through the previous sort of 10 years experience.
And that then led you to involve VC?
No. I went from there, and I'll tell you what, I didn't drive. I couldn't drive. I didn't drive for until my first child was born, actually, about 7 years ago.
Right.
I didn't need to. I worked in one place for 9 years, which was a 15-minute bus journey every sort of 5-10 minutes. And then I worked and lived in London, and you don't drive in London. So I didn't need to. And then I sort of passed my test and went, you know what, I want to go out on the road. I want to be a sort of service engineer. And I subsequently went to another systems integrator and did that for about another sort of 2 years until the opportunity at Evolve came along. And at the time, I was happy where I was, and I wasn't too sort of sure about whether I wanted to make another step at that point. My second child had just come along, and I was thinking, this is do I want to be swapping jobs now? Is this the right time? And
I ask myself that every day, Steve.
Exactly, that's it. It's a very difficult decision to make, and thankfully, I took the leap, and well, it's the last sort of 4.5-5 years. It's not stopped, and it's been amazing. So, I've got to draw back on all the experience that I'd sort of built upon and learned and everything through the sort of previous 15-16 years, and start using that every single day and being allowed to use it as well. I think it's when you're one person in a big sort of environment, you can get lost.
So you have quite a team probably underneath you then in the company.
Yeah, we're constantly growing. So I don't even know. I remember I started and a big thing was made because I was employee number 100.
Wow. Okay.
And subsequently now I think we're sort of 150, between 150 and 200 mark at least. So it's been a real continuous growth, and we've got some great engineers as well, and some real people again that are sort of recognizing that it's the type of company that allow you to spread your wings and to be noticed, and that's the right culture.
Well, you're hitting the nail on the head, and it's probably what every audiovisual person wants, is to find their scope in what they enjoy the most. And it's such a wide umbrella of whether it be doing tech support, whether it be doing sales, everyone's coming that I've talked to on this podcast has come into audiovisual in a different way. And
Yeah.
so I also seen that like Involve have an Apex, which is really difficult to get. It's a high award. So, and also you mentioned as well that you were an early school leaver. So with everything you've done now, I guess you have come back and just gone, now that I'm in audiovisual, I'm going to go off and get qualifications. So you have your CTS as well.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I've refused to. The thing for me, and I'm quite fortunate, is that it's a hobby as well as a career. So I love what I do. I'm fascinated by it, much like yourself. Who else spends their Sunday mornings or Sunday afternoons in our case, sort of chatting away on Twitter?
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly, and that's it. It's you've got to have a passion, and with that you've got to have goal. And so, if when I'm not doing a podcast this time of evening, I might well be doing an online course or something just to make sure that the certifications are up. I've got no intention of going anywhere for them to be on my to just be building on my CV. It's just I just want to be the best person I can be in my role, so it allows me to keep growing and progress. And
I think as well, you mentioned earlier on to me off mic that like a family with two kids, two young kids, you're similar to myself because I have a second baby on the way and I have a 2-year-old like fast asleep. Thankfully, fast asleep at the moment. But it's finding that work-life balance, Steve. So you've done all the pulling of cables, the live events and everything. Give me an average day-to-day involved now. What you got up in the morning, took the kids to school, what's next? You talked about, which I was really interested in to hear, you can do a lot of working from home.
Yeah, I've reached a point now in the progression to sort of work from home. I've sort of been fortunate enough almost to build my own role. So I came in as a sort of service engineer and sort of applied myself very quickly and showed off that I had some programming skills that I sort of built up previously by just doing ad hoc bits and pieces. Spent a couple of years ironing them out to become one of the main programmers that involve, and progressing from there as well with going into R&D, making sure that what we offered was the best we could offer, and streamlining it as much as possible, to then looking at other areas. So, as I was saying earlier, sort of the undervalued HE tech, which isn't a tech at all. It's a live events engineer. It's an install engineer. It's a tech. But then they're also, it's a support engineer, service engineer. It's the full lot. And on top of all that as well, I spent several years from the age of like 20 for a couple of years on the University Refurbishment Committee, deciding upon what we were going to put in next. So I suppose like a pre-sales consultancy role as well, and perhaps I was young mentality, I think, there in terms of just being a bit streetwise, whatnot else. But I think in my mind, the sort of the geeky side, it all seeped in and stayed in. And so I've managed to recall all that experience over the years and build that into my role now, and our technology manager involved. And so I'm sort of umbrella over both projects and service. Mm-hmm. I think my heart is within sort of service and obviously the programming side. You see me read chat and I'll do bits and pieces for it's an AV jam that we know of, and I've got that's my real passions, service and programming. And so with that, as I say, I there's times where I have to go out, but the majority of my time is working from home. So I drop the kids off in the morning, log on, check my emails, see if anything's sort of coming overnight. Offer any remote support, third line support to our guys. If we've got programming jobs coming up or need to be evaluated what we're doing, then start preparing them. Check what's going on in the industry. Check that certain manufacturers haven't released yet another version of firmware which is going to wipe out all their previous APIs and render control systems useless for the next couple of weeks. And then I'll pick the kids up again at after school if I've got that luxury. Take a couple of hours off in the evening to sort of spend some time with them and to sort of get some dinner, and then I'm probably back on it again. And I'm probably it's quite known for me to be sort of still sat at my desk about sort of 10, 11, even 12 o'clock at night. I mean, my situation is slightly different. My wife is sort of registered disabled with her back and some other bits, so it's difficult. I'll always say that as strange as it is, I'm quite fortunate. Whereas it could be classed as I try and take the positives out of the negatives.
Okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, no, it's great that you're able to. You finally found a footstep where you don't have to do what is the stereotype of many audiovisual technicians, the live events, the long hours, to being able to work from home. Like I have to say, Steve, I don't hear many people in the European region that can admit I work from home and do audiovisual, unless they're involved in a sales pitch or something like that. But to be able to offer remote assistance and remote support, it's something that you don't hear about much in Ireland and England.
No, it's it's quite. Again, we sort of had to build upon that. I think we learned a couple of years ago that we can really up our game with supporting our engineers remotely, as long as we invest in it. And then I think what was happening before is that we're not the size of what you could call the big four, so as providers in sort of UK and Ireland.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't mean that you're any less of a company. And what you do is you adapt as in, okay, you've not got 30 engineers that are on the ground sat around and whatnot at times. You've got engineers which are deployed everywhere. How do you best use that resource?
Yeah.
And what we quickly realised was, okay, I could go out to all these places and well, I say all these places, it wouldn't be. I could go out once a day. I could drive 3 hours to go, to Wales or Midlands or wherever else. And that's my day. I do one call and that's it. Or, we use the team we've got. We deploy them as and when necessary. We offer remote support. Connect via their laptop with remote assistance, whatever else. Show them what we're doing. So it's sort of ongoing training as well, if you like, in the hope that that'll build up their skills as well. But we can, as I say, we can deal with 5, 6, 7 calls additionally a day in that breath. And following, the other thing that gives me then in sort of in my role now as well is it allows me then to turn around and say, what, this has happened today. Can we make sure this, we need to action this immediately. We need to organise we need to organise an RMA for this or that, or we sort of revisit out once the manufacturer provides us with, the replacement kit for the faulty hardware. And that's invaluable, because otherwise, again, I'm on the road. I'm away from my desk, I'm away from the emails, and I can't do. I can't provide the service that customers demand.
Yes, yeah. Now, you bring up an interesting point. Like I know that there's some AV companies that try and get to that stage where the end user has bought into this remote assistance. Do you find that it's still at times a barrier if you get a new client on board that They just want to have the tech support technician visiting the site when things go wrong.
Yeah, and to clarify, we still send, most of our remote support work is, majority is with an engineer still attending site.
Okay, yeah.
It's a difficulty of it's the sort of ensuring that you're using the skills you can. So we're using sort of geographical engineers more than anything else, and so that's the important thing. There is this stigma between, again, we talk about all the time, AV security, AV IT security, and certainly I don't necessarily know if it's as much of a just a no, you're not going to update. We don't trust that you're not update firmware or anything else. I think it's just in the UK and Ireland, a raw protection over IT network. Also, I say IT teams. It's not. They like to purely classify themselves as network teams.
Yeah.
I think you get an IT manager and go, yeah, that's a great idea. We'll put all your kit on our network and give you access. But then the network team will go, no, you can't do that. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, it depends on the company. It depends on the company whether they'll give you that access. And I won't name companies, but I know exactly the situation here in Ireland, and especially across in Dublin, where there's a lot of these companies that they want the setup, but they don't want to give that access, and they want to know what every single thing that's coming in and out of that system.
Absolutely. I mean, we've had installs and the clients bought smart devices, and they've sort of we've installed them in our usual way and everything like that, and we've first been told, no, you can't do this, can't do that, and then somebody else, obviously the stakeholders, turned around and gone, so how do I change the background on there? It's you can't. Your network team have said no, and then the next minute you're getting an email from the network manager sort of going, can you provide us with all the ports that we need to open up to? And it's like, great. Here's a white paper if this helps. No, you want me to go through it? Okay. So yeah, it's a fun one.
Now, if you were to say, Steve, if I was to ask you, for anyone that's new and coming into the AV industry, what road would you tell them to take?
It's a real difficult one, because I think there'll be somebody in every single area of AV that will tell you, no, that's going to die. That's dead horse. And to be honest with you, at the moment, I'd say follow your passion, follow what interests you, ask questions, always ask questions. Don't be afraid to learn from your mistakes. I don't think there's any of us that have learned by not making mistakes. However, try and just limit them to the once. And just be open to the fact that it can be a brutal industry. You've got to commit to it. And if you don't commit to it, then unfortunately it's probably not the career for you, because you're not going to get anywhere easily. But ultimately the rewards are worth it, and it's a great, when you look at your customers, and again with Involve, that's been a real passion of mine, our customers, and you see what the difference you make. Then you know you're doing the right thing, you made the right decision.
Do you miss the higher ed?
I do.
You do, yeah.
Of course I do. I miss sitting there for 8 hours a day playing Football Manager all day long. No. I do miss it. I miss, depending on what the establishment is, it's a bubble. And it's, Warwick especially. Warwick's an amazing place. Firstly, it's massive. I don't know if you've ever been in there for the conferences.
I haven't been there, but I know, I've heard how big
it's the place where the first week of October or last week of September, when the freshers come back, it's the weirdest experience ever, because it's a Sunday, and it's got the campus has got, I think, 4 banks on site, and it's Sunday and all the banks are open. It's everything is just a hive of activity. You've had 3 months of conference delegates, so suits and everything else, and all of a sudden you've got all these new sort of fresh students land back on you, and the atmosphere is absolutely amazing. It's quite funny because we'd all switch roles. We'd go from all being sort of AV techs, engineers, like with live events, whatever else, to suddenly being locksmiths and runners, because all the students come back to accommodation and things like that. And it's an amazing experience. But the day-to-day academic side, I miss those characters. Absolutely miss the characters. The situations when it's, I think days of overhead projectors have long gone now in most universities. But, yeah, but I remember those days of walking down the awkward steps, as the same as the cinema, of a sort of 250-seater auditorium, lecture theatre, because you've got an academic at the front of the room going absolutely, ballistic, because they can't start their lecture and the equipment isn't working again. And you already know the room, you already know the academic, and you already know what the problem is before you've stepped in.
Oh, yeah.
You know that a state's fitted that plug socket upside down on the side of the stage. So you know that what appears to be off is on, and that you've got to walk down those steps when everyone instantly goes silent when you walk in, and you can't show up that professor or whatever else they are by just walking, going, click, there you go, because they'll be held to pay. Daft stuff like that, but then also that whole, there's essentially 50 minutes of a lecture. There's 5 minutes past the hour to 5 minutes to the hour, and there's never a gap anymore. It used to be years and years ago, but that's gone. Mm-hmm. You can't afford downtime. So you all didn't know what the fault was. You had up to 10 minutes. You had until 15 minutes past the hour, because then they were cancelling. And believe you, when they cancelled, they'd let you know about it. Right. And it's something that I've never experienced with any other customer in any other sector, industry working in AV.
Sector, you haven't experienced that pressure.
Not that sort of timescale. Obviously, it's much different. I've done on-site work, so I do understand that. But it's still not the same as when a lecture can't go ahead, because it's it's set. There's times. There's 10 lectures a term, and you can't have an 11th one. There's no availability for rooms. There's nothing in the timetable that allow it. Every one of those students has got different other sections for you.
You were looking after AV across the whole campus then?
Yeah. It was over 200 central timetabled rooms.
Wow.
Back in my day, it was 13 lecture theatres of over 150 seats. Mm-hmm. So that's fully integrated systems. They were big. And I had the largest lecture theatre I looked after, initially one of the newest, but mine was a 400-seater that I'd look after on a regular daily basis.
Right.
But that was my baby. I still miss that now. It was weird. It was
and of course doing live events to that size as well. When you were in the summertime off term, you were doing.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. I mean, there's one building again. I spoke about the bubble. But there's one building at the university, and it had 10 seminar rooms, if you like, and the 400-seat auditorium, which meant that essentially it was its own self-contained conference centre, all alone. And so I could spend most of my summer in that one building, and with my was a lecture theatre, now an auditorium, because it's conferences and they're no longer lecture theatres.
Right.
But suddenly, and the other thing that they did was they invested separately into it. So I spoke about the refurb committee, which was part academic, but part at the time it was Warwick Conferences. And they'd invest, what conferences would invest into the AV facilities. So, say, for example, the academic side said, well, we need, again, going back a few years, so we want a 2,000 lumen projector in there. And conferences will say, no, we want at least a 3,000.
Yeah.
So, well, it will cost this much, and okay. Yeah. And they build up the AV with it. So it was brilliant because, it wasn't just this and I think that's where my understanding of programming came from, because it wasn't just a single one-touch automated system, because that's what it was for academic teaching purposes. But then you had to suddenly turn much the same equipment from being all automated to being self-controlled with 48-channel mixing desks, and so you could put in additional radio mics and everything else, and suddenly you don't want to press play on a DVD player, on a touch panel DVD player. You want to be able to do everything manually or route stuff manually. I think that's where, again, I find myself really lucky that I got to experience that and got to then see I suppose it's more this, that's where the integrator side comes from. I have to admit, not begrudgingly, but I think that the job Jonathan Owen has done at Warwick is absolutely amazing. I think that he is, he's completely modernised.
He's changed it completely.
Yeah, absolutely. I started with the school of the 70s really, and haven't got bad things to say to him. My manager when I first started there, a gentleman called Tay Williams, he to this day, and I know that there'll probably be a couple of people listening who sort of, well, not me, but Tay Williams, to me, he took me under his wing as a 16-year-old and guided me through what I needed to, and turned me into a much better human being. And there's then sort of Terry had to retire, unfortunately, due to ill health, and that's where I sort of got a couple of years' experience between transition of sort of not leading the team as such, but taking a lot more responsibility on. And then things went in a different direction. Stripped virtually all the touch panels out, replaced them all with sort of button systems. I was heartbroken. I was sort of thinking, this isn't how it should be. And subsequently,
I don't like change. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And at the same point, Jonathan arrived.
Jonathan's great.
Almost just as young as I was, but he's always had a very sensible head, and he sort of he quickly took charge of audiovisual services at Warwick, and it's amazing sort of catching on Twitter and seeing other bits and pieces exactly what he's achieved, and so hats off to Jonathan and the team. I know he's still got that's a number of years. And still think about HE.
Did you get to go to any LTSMG conferences?
No, I've not been on any.
Oh my goodness, I've been on one already, and I tell you, it's just we definitely do talk tech. No, we don't. We actually drink a lot of beer and then talk tech.
I think the problem was I was bitter when I left higher education, because I didn't feel like I was done, and I think it was only the last few years I was involved where I've sort of gone, thank God what happened, because I might still be there, in 40 years, I might never have left higher education. I think that there's something quite uncomfortable about that. I don't want to be a 60-year-old man in an environment full of 18 to 21-year-olds. Mm-hmm. I was struggling with that at the age of 24.
Okay.
I was quite happy to come away from it in the end, and it took me it did take me a long time to sort of go, okay, do you know what? It's time to have a look see what's happening, and as I say, it's amazing what's happened there, and I'm look at some of the installs and photos of the work there and stuff, and I'm very jealous that we didn't have more of that years ago, because it's amazing. It's and you know when you've got a good leader, because you manage to secure the funding.
Well, it speaks for itself and what the actual university itself has done.
Yeah.
Like you can see it with their awards and what they have picked up in the recent times.
Absolutely.
Good leadership, good teams will win awards.
Absolutely.
Of that scale. Now, moving on slightly, you mentioned a lot about programming, Steve. So I have to ask you the quick-fire question: Extron or Crestron?
Crestron.
Crestron all the way.
Absolutely.
Now, I have to say, it is interesting saying Crestron. I just find that if you're an outside person trying to get Crestron programming, it's incredibly difficult. Do you find that?
No, because I do it. I'm a Crestron programmer. So,
did you have to get a company? Well, you have Involve behind you, but to get onto the training courses, it's very hard to get onto them.
Of course, it can be, and I know what you mean. Extron offer direct courses for higher education.
Yes.
I think that it's a little bit more tricky with Crestron, because you need to normally have the backing of your reseller, and in the university that's, of course, everything's tender, and so it becomes very difficult to do so. However, I don't know, use power of social media these days, maybe.
Yeah, to get some helping hands, to get a fellow to back you up and get you onto a course.
Absolutely, and I think that Crestron would, the thought that they're losing out on a market because of that, and because not recognising the skill sets there are within higher education, I'm sure they'd have a rethink.
Well, I hope they do. Okay, that answers that one. Crestron and Extron, it's Crestron all the way. Apple or Android?
Android.
Yes, I thought you might say that. What type of phone have you got?
I've got a Samsung Note 9.
Yes, and so you haven't gone down the Huawei type of route, and would you actually touch Huawei with all the controversy that's going on?
Well, I wouldn't, because at the moment it's not going to be sport. The next model is not going to be supported.
Yes.
And we don't know when the current version might suddenly stop getting supported. So I'm well aware of that. Do I think it's mainly hype? I think anything at the moment. And I'm going to be careful about that. I might upset some people. But of course, there's always hype coming out of the US at the moment when it comes to politics. So
this already, Steve, on our podcast, and we're not afraid to address in different ways. You think it's hype, do you?
I think a lot of it. I think a lot of it is hype.
Right.
I think there's bits of AV security and any sort of security like that at the moment, IT security especially. There's a lot of money to be made. That doesn't mean that I don't believe that there is problems, because there is. I'm cautious of the limitations of those problems. So I won't change believe in going, in regards to it being AV. I'm really opening this can of worms here. Majority, 95% of my systems are local LANs. All the kit is on a local LAN. Now, as far as I'm concerned, my biggest threat isn't somebody hacking into that system. It's somebody coming in with a sledgehammer and just deciding they're going to willfully demolish it, because that's all they can get from it. And is that then enough? And I completely understand that times will change and that more stuff will be networked and remote access and whatnot else for remote support. However, does that mean that we instantly turning around now and saying we shouldn't be using that, or we should be focusing on all this extra sort of security when that doesn't affect that setup? It's difficult to explain. My concern is that we're essentially cutting off technologies because it could pose a risk.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, everything out there poses a risk of sorts.
As soon as it's networked, it can pose a risk.
Absolutely. Much the same way, I think that AV security now, to a degree, is much the same as physical security was. I'm sure you 10, 15 years ago, if it wasn't absolutely caged down, locked down, it would be gone. Especially, I remember, again, working at university, I remember that you've got control rooms. You've got control rooms within lecture theatres. Lecture theatres in which some students couldn't open the doors because they were so heavy when they were unlocked.
Yeah.
And you get people breaking into first the building, then into the lecture theatre, then into the control room to steal the projector.
Yeah.
And they were good. You have security cameras in there. They'd be in and out within a minute. And to a degree, that's what's happening. It's the same to me. To a level, it's the same threat we've got now. You have got people that are more. Yeah, there might be somebody in there that's more determined. If you're in a bank, if it's a bank environment or whatever else, yeah, absolutely, you've got to be aware of the risks in there. But there's also just as much risk on the IT network side that they would manage and look after as well. So nothing's ever going to be wholly secure.
Accidents happen, and accidents happen from the end user, is the way I would describe it. As in, you can have the best system available and completely locked down, and you talk about banks and whatever, and it takes for someone to leave a sticky note underneath their keypad, and it happens.
Absolutely. And as I say, and I'll be really, really clear, I take AV security desperately seriously. My point is, though, that I don't envisage the next. I've completely forgotten the Huawei or the NHS attack that we had in the UK summer before last, ransomware and all that. I'm not expecting to see that on AV right now, because I do believe that unfortunately we are reactive rather than proactive. But I think we're safe. We've got to be sensible. But my biggest point is we can't just suddenly cut off all our streams and go, no, we're not going to do that anymore because something bad may happen one day. If that's the case, we won't get out of bed in the morning.
In fact, Steve, I'm surprised that Trump hasn't been blaming a hacker for damaging the presidential or the electoral debates there a week ago when the microphones failed. Yeah, that's another topic, and that's controversial, and we'll have your comments on answers on a postcard, please, to All Things Techie. Okay, so we said Apple or Android. You've gone with Android. Would you go Mac or Windows?
Windows.
Yeah.
Windows, and partly it's lazy. It's because it's what I know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is lazy. I know people will sell their soul for Macs and Apple or whatnot, but I'm a good old Windows boy. I've learned on 3.1, grown up with it. I'm happy with that. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I just use both because I do a lot of video editing myself. Okay. But that's the only reason I use a Mac. Now, Infocom or ISE, or have you been to both?
I don't know yet.
Okay, interesting.
I tell you what, I went to ISE this year.
Okay.
That's amazing. It was the first year it was actually the first year I've been.
Oh right, okay.
It's one of those where unfortunately when you're on the ground, you're unavailable to go. There's always a reason why not. And this year was the first year I got to go, and yeah, the geek in me, it was like Disneyland. But then seeing everyone at Infocom on Twitter and whatnot last week, the green-eyed monster really did come out with me.
So you haven't been to Infocom yet?
I've not been to Infocom yet.
No, either have I, and I just like the actual green-eyed monster, as you say. I want to go over to Infocom, and I want to go.
Desperately want to go. I think that it looks. I think it's just a lot more rounded.
Yeah.
It feels, ISE, amazing, but I think that you can get lost in the depths of ISE into complete and utter irrelevance. And I think that Infocom seems to be a little bit more rounded like that. It's got the people. It seems just more vibrant and colourful and just that nice sort of yeah.
Yeah, and more parties as well, it seems.
I don't want to say that out loud.
Yeah, but we get it.
Yeah.
Now, if you said the one trend in audiovisual that you see happening in the next 5 years, what do you think is going to be big?
I think it's what we already know. It's AV over IP growing further. There's little else that I actually can look at the moment and go, definitely, and I'd love to do another one of these in 5 years. But the one thing I'm going to put my neck on the line, and I'm going to say the one thing that isn't going anywhere is programming.
Yeah.
Again, I'll be quite vocal on AV and AM and stuff, and again from a higher education background, I think that you can probably relate to that.
It's not changing. It isn't changing. Okay, it's going to be over IP. Yeah, great. Maybe we'll have more remote access. Maybe if you're down the Extron route or similar products, that it's going to be more accessible for the technician who has very little programming to get the basics of on, off, change source. But no, it's not going to be any bigger than what it is now, unless you're designing a template in a Crestron controller where you're adding images, you're adding background sources or whatnot.
I think that's it, isn't it? I think it comes more down to the pre-sales side, the system architecture side, as well as the customer and their sort of budgets really. I think the whole manufacturers coming up with their own solution, I don't think it's going to work. And the reason for why, higher education, very specific niche in terms of that system has got to be as simple as possible. However, I don't think manufacturers are going to make anything as simple as possible because they're going to still want to include their own elements to it. They're going to want to. Their mark is always going to be on it. They're not going to turn around and go, okay, our product that we sell globally, and we sell to every sort of industry there is, must be really important for higher education. We must look after higher education especially. They don't need all that rest of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's not going to happen like that. And the same then for health, for government, for corporate. Everyone still needs that element. Somebody suggested to me a couple of weeks ago and said, we have Crystal Mercuries in all of our huddle spaces. They don't need any programming. They come pre-built and we just plug them in and they're ready to go. It's like, yeah, they're amazing. Those sort of simple huddle space, all-in-one units, brilliant. But tell me now, did you have a programmer doing your huddle spaces 10 years ago? Did you have huddle spaces 10 years ago? No. The industry has seen that there's a gap in the market and they've gone for it.
Focusing on it.
Absolutely. As technology becomes adapted more, so does it's the customers. Possibilities open up to the customers.
I totally agree with you, Steve. And when you look at it in a higher ed capacity, and you have a limited budget, you might have a faculty member that just wants to be able to do video calls. And you're thinking, hold on a minute, I have a limited budget here. Here's let's say, for example, a Logitech camera that's doing HD quality that they can stick in their room or in their huddle space versus here's a $2,000 pan tilt zoom camera. They don't need a pan tilt zoom camera, it's a huddle space. A simple camera, USB, there you go, off you go. And you will still get the third party tenders tendering for absolutely ridiculous amount of money, knowing that it's higher education, knowing that they can try and fool people with this. And I'm sorry, this might offend a lot of AV companies, but it's true. We all know.
No, it's funny. It's again, I've gone through the years, and the whole tender process has changed dramatically from when I first started to when I left higher education. And I remember that it used to basically be, we use Joe Blogs. We've used them for years, and they'll get their mate, Jack and John, and yeah, they'll get the job sorted within a week, and it's dirt cheap. And that would be exactly the same install as one of your big systems integrators was going to want to charge you, but for fifth of the cost. And it's funny how that's changed, and you've had to bring the big ones in. But the weird thing is, when the big ones have come in, there's seen more and more delays and more problems because of the culture, the nature of it, and there's a very fine line. And that's not the fact. I'm not talking badly about anyone else. I think the biggest problem is it's understanding your client.
Yeah.
And that is what's going to occur for these manufacturers, whether it's your Cisco's, your Polycoms, or whoever else, when they decide to turn around and go, you don't need anyone else. You can do all your stuff through us. We'll do all your programming, or it's all built in. Because my answer to that is, it's not gonna work for everyone, because there's going to be an element you're going to go, no, they must not be able to do that. Well, I can't turn that on or off. That's just what it comes with.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously as well, it's never going to cater for those bigger spaces. And so the only thing that I see missing off is whereby some perhaps cheekier integrators would try to take on the 12, the sort of 8 to 12 seater meeting rooms, really. And I think that's the one area that's up for grabs. The rest of it, again, if you've got the right systems architect and pre-sales team, and they can design you and go, this is a type A room, this is a type B room, or medium VC, large VC, and everything in there, every component there is going to be identical for those 8 rooms.
Yeah. And
the large VC room, everything's going to be identical for those 4 rooms. So it's going to require 2 programs. You don't have this problem, and what you want to be able to access it via your intranet. We can sort that for you. What do you want? What information do you want to be able to see? Yeah, we'll do it once, and it will work then on.
Steve, you're talking about the ideal world, but it never happens like that, unfortunately.
I think that we can, and this is what this is what we're doing more now.
Yeah.
And it's being able just to. It is. I appreciate it's difficult for some because they're constantly up against it. It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
But you've got to start thinking about. It's after 4 years of programming. For 4 years programming for Involve. Is every job I do, every custom job I do, fully custom. I'm picking. There's bits and pieces out there now that you take and you use elements of that, and that speeds up that process for you. So you're not talking 4 weeks for a job. You're talking 4 days, if that.
Yeah.
But then what you're trying to do at the same time, you're going, okay, this functionality would be really useful. Noticing it more and more, and the equipment as it progresses, you get more APIs. We can give that. We can give that functionality there. Is that something we want to include? How do we look at absorbing the costs of the company and simply hoping that our clients are going to recognise what we've done different to anyone else? Are we going to charge for it? It's a nice position to be in because you've got the options. You just got to think about it. You've got to think about it carefully. You've got to go, okay, this isn't necessarily about us. It is about our customers and what will make it easy for them. But also we've got to bear in mind as well support. I'm not going to go into the whole AV as a service. I think that's been done elsewhere.
Joe's
absolutely, absolutely. But we can't ignore the fact service is a major thing in the industry. Essentially, that's pretty much. Let's be fair. That's pretty much what higher education is.
Yeah,
it's the main thing is service. So when I do programming, I'm constantly thinking about, okay, how can this be serviced?
Yeah.
What can I do on here to provide information for both the customer when they ring up our help desk,
You don't want the calls. You don't want that extra
You
support.
don't, but you tell me that you don't sit at your laptop and you suddenly don't get a blue screen, or you don't suddenly get something crash, or something just suddenly stops working. It's technology. Tech every now and again goes wrong.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's just from hardware, or whether there is some sort of special loop that a user's going to create that suddenly breaks something.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing as well is, I think I would say the last 12 months has perhaps slightly improved. But I think that for the last sort of 2 out of the last 3 years, firmware in our industry has been hell. I've not witnessed it as bad as it has been. And just purely, I don't expect to get a upgraded version of something sent out to me, a new model or something, whereby I've got no option but to go with a new version because the old version's end of life after 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then to find out that, there's firmware bugs on this, or, you get a call 3 days later after install, I've got this problem, and you're going, what on earth is that problem? I've never seen it before. That's completely random. You phone up the manufacturer.
You nearly feel like waiting a week or two if you can.
I think you've got to wait. The way it's going, it had been going, is you're having to wait 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And this is it. And there's one massive manufacturer who brought out a new version of hardware, and it must have been about 3 months after they brought it out. We stuck it in, and we were still getting those random issues. And we went, do you know what? We're going to have to phone them. It can't be anything to do with that. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's hardware failure. It's just weird. Mm-hmm. And we phoned them up and we said, we've had a couple of reports like this. We've got some beta firmware for you to try. So, all right. And then you get sent the beta firmware, and that doesn't work because it's the wrong file. And then you decide, do you know what? I'm running out of time here. I need to go on their website and look on the website. Well, actually, they've never released a stable version of firmware. Okay, you get another version of firmware. That doesn't work. So then they send you another version of firmware. And this issue went on for 6 months. And it was after a total of 9 months in which they suddenly released the first stable version of firmware.
God. Wow.
Now this was one of this. I'm really not going to name.
No, we're not going to name.
But this is one of their flagship. This was one of their flagship bits of kit. And I just thought to myself, how can that be possible to have those sort of problems? And we saw it. There's the one company. There is a company that I will mention that is a bane of my life. Their firmware, Cisco, with their codecs.
Okay. Yeah.
And I will mention, because I want them really deeply to do something about it, the fact that you've got something working, and it works. The hardware, now the difference is the hardware doesn't change.
Yeah.
It works in version 1, works in version 2, 3, 4, no, 5, no, not anymore, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. What went on there? Why did that just stop working in that version?
Yeah.
It's random. I don't get it, but they're the things that break systems. It's nothing to do with programming and code, going back to the start of this. Most of the time, I say to our engineers, they come up, I get an email or a phone call going, the problem with code or a program is needed. Where are you? And they'll tell me where I'm at. That was done 2 years ago. Yeah. It doesn't need a programmer. Code doesn't break. Programming code does not break itself. If something else has changed, if an element of that system has changed, then maybe it might need adapting. But that's not the root cause. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing whereby, you said that you're making difficult for yourself, whatever else, or you're not making these systems anymore susceptible to failure or anything like that at all. By spending that little bit of extra time, you're doing the complete opposite. You're building them. You're making sure they're stable, and that can be used for 4 or 5 years.
But sometimes you ask yourself, Steve, with those type of firmware updates, what is the necessity of these updates? Maybe it's security. I say 9 times out of 10 it is security, but sometimes I say, especially in the higher end of things, I've seen it, where people go, hold on, I don't want to touch this in case it all falls over.
It's the race market. Ultimately, that's the problem. I don't see anywhere near as many critical updates because of security anymore. I see it with feature updates, and it's because it's a race to market. And I know we've always had this problem in AV, but it's getting worse. It's that whole, it's not yet finished, but so and so might be bringing one out. We need to get out there first. And so we'll chuck it out. And again, I've seen manufacturers selling functionality of kit, and it taking 3 years. And actually do because it's coming in future firmware, and I think that's going to get even worse.
And I can see a lot of that in residential Internet of Things devices, and we don't even need to name the names. We all know who we're talking about. See, I'm going to give you a final question. We could talk about programming all night long.
Another one, maybe another time.
Yeah, you know that you're having a good time on it. But it is your birthday, and what do you give a tech guru like yourself that has a load of techie gadgets? Do you want a techie gadget? If your wife probably came to you and go, what did you want for your birthday? And you said?
My wife was thrilled because last week they released the Raspberry Pi 4.
Right, okay.
So all of a sudden, the Raspberry Pi 4 is the geeks, especially programming geeks, new toy. So that was sorted. It was going to be Amazon vouchers and everything else, and buying mods and everything else for it, and all of a sudden you're networking your house up to Internet of Things and everything, because it's development. And there's one point, there's one point I'd like to mention, and about everything we've talked about a lot of things we've talked about so far, is we've always talked about the future, and not getting it right because the race to functionality and whatnot. But I wish our industry can look at today, focus on getting today right. Then let's worry about 5-10 years time. I think we're running now before we can walk.
A quote of the actual series of let's get things right now instead of looking at. That's my biggest concern. So when your question about what do you get a geek for their birthday, and that is something whereby they can geek and they can do little bits of research and they can look at the future, but they do it away from their customers. Oh, absolutely. Now, you brought up Raspberry Pi. Now, I haven't played around with Raspberry Pis. I keep on saying to myself, and even to Simon, my co-host, that I want to get a Raspberry Pi and just program and teach myself some bits and pieces. Am I right in saying that Raspberry Pi have a shop in London now? Has Raspberry Pi, in your views, gone very commercialized now? It used to be sort of like the geeky...
It was, wasn't it? It was that little bit off, sort of. They got associated with sort of CBC Final, wasn't it? And bits and pieces. That's what it got associated with. But it's gone massive, and to be honest with you, rightly so, because there is a hell of a lot you can do with it. It is the modern day Meccano.
Nice.
But its possibilities for the price are massive, But in the same breath, you've got to be slightly cautious because you can get carried away with it. I know some people, and they're sort of like, "Yeah, I've got 20 Raspberry Pis around my house now, and I've got full CCTV set up." And I'm thinking, Raspberry Pi, you're probably spending just for the board itself. you spend about 40 quid, and then all your power supplies and everything else, and so probably close to 60 quid. Then you've got the camera, that's about another £20 on top if you have got cameras. And what? Well, you're probably better off just buying a CCTV system. It can get out of control, but I think that it's nice because you can see what's possible, and you can see.
Your wife understand your geekiness with this Raspberry Pi that she's just bought it?
No,
neither does my wife.
She doesn't probably get my geekiness at all, and in fairness, she doesn't. If someone is to ask her what I do.
Yeah, my wife just believes that like I just play around and.
I have to admit, when people ask me what I do now, even I struggle to answer. It is.
Welcome to the world of AV, my friends.
That's it. You pick a small area of it, and you just go. Like FaceTime on your phone. I suppose like that. But yeah, it's worth it.
I think on that note, Steve, I've taken up a lot of your time tonight, and it's your birthday, and you definitely deserve a couple of points now after the night you've had, and we won't go into that.
No.
That's a different subject for a different day, and I'm sure Steve will tell us all about it at some stage, like at ISE or Infocom in the future. That's where we will say the future of AV is, where we all meet up and have a good few pints and discuss these things.
Indeed.
Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the All Things Techie podcast. This has been episode 13. Want to really ramp up the amount of episodes, and we will be continuing this with episode 14. Great interview there also, and we were joined by Rob Hyde for episode 14. That's coming up as well right here on the All Things Techie podcast. You can visit our website www.allthingstech.ie, where we talk about anything tech in an Irish perspective. Now also we're going to be talking about in the next couple of episodes spam callers. Does it annoy you, listeners? Especially if you're living in Ireland. My mobile phone is with Vodafone, and I'm going to tell you the most interesting story where their tech support and their business customer call centre told me to contact my local Garda station because I'm getting international spam calls, even though I blocked them time and time again. I'm getting about 5-10 of these calls a day to my mobile phone. So the other thing that they then told me to do was download free apps for my Android phone, or they can change my number that I've been using for the past 18 years. Love to hear Irish perspectives on that, and if you have an international perspective too, but especially Irish perspectives, what would you do? What is the communications regulator in Ireland doing about it? We'll hopefully be trying to link in with them as well. But that's coming up in a later episode of All Things Techie. If you have comments on that, you can tweet myself, Justin, at Justin or Dawson, or you can visit our website, www.allthingstech.ie. This program has been brought to you by the Extreme Media Network. You can visit Extreme Media at www.extrememedia.ie. From me, Justin Dawson, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
The All Things Techie podcast is a product of the Extreme Media Network. For advertising and sponsorship opportunities, please visit www.extrememedia.ie. That's XTREME media.ie.